The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the private dining room at the Sterling Room, but the air felt colder than the champagne flutes on the table. I had just stepped through the doorway when Sophie spotted me from across the space. Her laugh erupted first, sharp, practiced, the kind that made everyone turn. She glided toward me in her crimson gown, the fabric whispering luxury with every step. "Grace, darling, you made it all the way from your side of town. Was the Uber ride brutal?" I smiled politely, adjusting the strap of my simple black clutch. Inside it rested my iPhone 8, screen cracked in one corner from years of faithful service. "Actually, I drove myself." Her eyes lit up with that familiar gleam. "Still rocking the old Honda? How wonderfully practical of you." The laugh followed again, drawing Richard over. He flashed his new Rolex as he leaned in. "And is that... Wait, are you serious?" Still carrying that ancient brick around, he pointed at my phone peeking out. "Grace, that thing is practically a museum piece. They stopped supporting updates ages ago. What do you even do with it? Play Snake?" The circle grew quickly. Eleanor, Mark's mother, approached with feigned sympathy, her pearl necklace catching the light. "Sweetheart, if money's tight for a new one, we can help. We're still family, after all." Sophie chimed in, voice carrying just enough to reach the edges of the group. "Some of us more than others." "Obviously." Thomas joined, bourbon in hand. "Nothing wrong with frugality. But that phone. Grace, you suggested the family reunion at a public park once. Remember? Always the practical one." Laughter rippled. Jennifer corrected someone gently. "She does data entry from home now. So flexible. Right?" Sophie pulled out her gleaming iPhone Pro Max. Screen massive and flawless. "This is what real life looks like. It's practically a computer. But I guess when your biggest worry is entering numbers correctly, you don't need the latest tech." She paused for effect. "You should upgrade just for safety. What if your Civic breaks down on the highway and that relic can't even dial 911? The group chuckled. Patricia stage whispered to her daughter nearby. "This explains the divorce. Mark needed someone on his level." Sophie raised her glass. "To making the best of what we have, even when it's not much." The toast landed squarely on me. I lifted my water glass calmly. "To making the best of what we have." Her smile widened, mistaking my composure for surrender. "You're such a good sport, Grace. Not everyone can be a success story. Someone has to serve as the cautionary tale." More laughter. Richard high-fived his brother. Eleanor gently scolded but smiled along. "Be nice, Sophie." "I am being nice. I'm including her." The maitre d' announced dinner, and the group migrated toward the long table. Sophie linked arms with Eleanor, voice low but audible. "You really should talk to Mark about increasing support. It's embarrassing how she shows up like this. It reflects on the whole family." I took my assigned seat at the far end, pulling out my phone to silence it. The worn case felt comforting in my hand, as Sophie held court at the center, basking in approval. I let the humiliation wash over me like a slow tide. It didn't sting as sharply as it once had. 3 years of this had tempered me. 3 weeks from now, everything would shift. The lake house closing loomed. The foundation documents waited, and my revised will sat signed and sealed. They saw poor Grace, the divorced accountant scraping by in her modest suburban apartment, driving a reliable but dated Civic, clinging to an outdated phone. What they didn't see was the woman who had quietly turned her divorce settlement into a growing fortune through smart, patient investments. Technology plays that paid off handsomely. Real estate in overlooked areas. Cryptocurrency timed perfectly. The $2.8 million from the split had grown to over $8.7 million. But revealing any of it earlier would have invited the wrong kind of attention, the kind that had corrupted Mark and revealed the family's shallow affections. I had chosen deliberate invisibility after the divorce to discover who truly valued me. The answer had been painful but clarifying: almost no one. Sophie's interior design firm, Lux Living, grossed decent revenue on paper, but I knew from discreet checks it struggled beneath the surface. Mark had burned through his share on flashy purchases and bad advice from Richard. The family floated on perception and debt. My quiet life made them feel superior by comparison. That night, back in my small Denver apartment, I poured a modest glass of wine and sat by the window overlooking the quiet street. The humiliation from dinner settled into something colder: resolve. My best friend Olivia's text arrived. How bad was the circus this time? I replied simply. Sophie was in rare form. But it's almost over. I opened my encrypted files. Portfolio summaries confirmed the numbers. The lake house on the outskirts, 5 acres of waterfront, paid in cash through an LLC, would close soon. The charitable foundation, Fresh Starts, aimed at supporting women rebuilding after financial control or divorce, had its paperwork nearly ready. And the will excluded the Millers entirely, directing assets to the foundation instead. They still whispered about me, leaving something to the nieces and nephews. Assuming I had no one else. 3 weeks. I whispered the countdown to myself. Let them enjoy their mockery a little longer. The steel inside me had been forged slowly, quietly. Grandmother's lessons echoed. Never show your full hand until the right moment. The days after the anniversary dinner passed in a careful rhythm. I maintained the facade, simple clothes from discount stores. The same old Civic parked visibly. Data entry excuses ready for any prying questions. Inside, however, I moved pieces into place like a chess master nearing checkmate. My financial advisor, one of the only people who knew fragments of the truth, confirmed the final transfers. You've built something remarkable, Grace. Most people would have flaunted it years ago. I hadn't. After the divorce, when Mark loudly declared in the courthouse hallway that I didn't understand money and would burn through it quickly, the irony had fueled me. I had been the one guiding our investments during marriage, turning his software salary into real growth. Post-split, while he splurged on a penthouse and failed startup, I vanished into calculated modesty, moved to the unassuming apartment, kept the Civic, wore clothes that drew no attention, and invested relentlessly. Technology stocks before the boom. Properties in neighborhoods everyone dismissed. Even cryptocurrency, when skeptics called it dead. The portfolio swelled steadily. Now it sat at $8.7 million and climbing. Enough for generations, but meaningless if surrounded by people who only valued the surface. My lawyer had reviewed the will changes twice. Are you absolutely certain, Grace? This is irreversible. I had nodded each time. The Millers' hopes for inheritance, based on my childless status and their assumption of my dependence, would evaporate. Fresh Starts would receive the bulk, helping women escape the very traps I had endured, marriages where worth was measured by usefulness or bank balance. Olivia and I met at our usual out-of-the-way coffee shop in a neighborhood the Millers would never frequent. She stirred her latte vigorously as I recounted the dinner in detail. She called you a cautionary tale to your face, while toasting with champagne you weren't offered. Her anger was genuine. Grace, you've endured this for 3 years. Why keep going? You could walk away entirely. I traced the rim of my cup. Because I needed certainty. Every slight, every joke, every whispered comment has been documentation, not for revenge, but proof of who they really are when they think I have nothing. I showed her saved screenshots on my old phone, public records of Sophie's business struggles, borrowing against retirement accounts, Mark's credit issues, the house of cards they maintain through perception. Olivia whistled. They're drowning and using you as their life raft, feeling successful by comparison.
Exactly.
I'm done being their measuring stick. The lake house closes next week. The foundation launches soon after. I'm hosting a dinner at the new property to announce everything. Invitations will make it clear it concerns the family's future role. Her eyes widened. You're revealing it all? Not exact numbers. Enough to show their cautionary tale has been living a different story. They'll assume I'm desperate for reconciliation or begging for help. Sophie won't resist the chance to gawk at my modest situation. We laughed together at the coming irony. The catering company I hired was the same upscale one Sophie once used, but could no longer afford reliably. The menu would include dishes from high-profile events she bragged about. Olivia squeezed my hand. This could backfire. People like Sophie don't like being upstaged. What can she do? Spread more rumors? They already have. Cut me out? They did that at the divorce. Their only power was my silence. I'm taking it back. She smiled slowly. You've thought of everything. 3 years to plan. 3 years to confirm their character never changes. They won't suddenly value me beyond money. So I'll show them what they lost by being exactly who they are. Then I live openly, no more hiding. The foundation would support women recovering from financial abuse, teaching literacy and independence. The Millers would lose any claim to legacy through me. Eleanor had hinted at Christmas how family takes care of family, suggesting my assets passed to her grandchildren since I had none. Sophie had even asked about including her kids in my will. They're the closest thing to children you'll ever have. The grotesque assumptions had sealed their fate. Back home, I stood before the mirror in my small bedroom. The woman staring back had carried the weight of performance for years. Grandmother's photo on the nightstand reminded me, never let them see your full hand.
Grace.
They'll find a way to take it. She had raised me after my parents' death, instilling quiet strength wrapped in silk. 3 weeks felt both endless and fleeting. The transformation was already in motion. Tuesday morning brought the first visible change, a haircut at an exclusive downtown studio, the same one Sophie bragged about spending hundreds on. My stylist Marcus examined my neglected hair with professional concern. What are we aiming for? Complete reinvention. Elegant. Understated wealth. Old money that doesn't announce itself. 3 hours later, rich auburn waves with subtle highlights framed my face, taking years off and revealing the confident woman beneath the mousy exterior. Eyebrows shaped. Makeup recommendations noted. Whatever this is for, Marcus said as I paid cash. Someone's about to regret everything. Shopping followed in bolder to avoid encounters. I selected cashmere sweaters,
Silk blouses.
tailored trousers, timeless pieces that whispered quality. A few designer items Sophie name-dropped but could no longer sustain. Vintage jewelry from an estate sale. Pearls with history. Diamond studs. A watch worth more than her car, but looking inherited. At home, trying on the new wardrobe, the reflection showed the real me emerging. The 3-year costume of modesty fell away. My lawyer confirmed the lake house closing for the next day. I made the final drive in my Civic, savoring the symbolism. The property exceeded expectations. 5 acres of lakefront. Architectural masterpiece with floor-to-ceiling windows. Private dock. Gourmet kitchen. Cash purchase. No contingencies. I arranged furniture delivery. Contractors. Landscaping. In 2 weeks, it would host the dinner, my debut and the family's reckoning. Crafting the invitations required precision. You are cordially invited to a special announcement dinner regarding my future plans and the family's ongoing role. Presents specifically requested. Saturday, October 15th, 7 p.m. Lakeshore Drive. Detailed address to follow. Business attire. RSVP by October 8th. sent via expedited mail to arrive during their Sunday dinner, ensuring Sophie opened hers publicly. Eleanor called Sunday evening, voice probing. Grace.
Dear.
The invitation arrived. How formal. Is everything okay? Everything is wonderful. I've made positive changes and want to share them properly. Family support matters, as you've always said. She relaxed audibly, interpreting it as my return to their hierarchy, perhaps seeking aid. Of course we'll be there. Sophie texted soon after. Cute invitation. Finally ready to stop playing victim? Richard might have data entry work if you're serious about your career. I didn't reply. Let assumptions flourish. The next morning, I confirmed the elaborate menu with the caterer, Salmon Wellington. Premium wines from notable events. A revelation, I told them. 3 years overdue. As the date approached, calm settled over me. The old phone remained my constant companion, a reminder of the journey. Tomorrow, everything would accelerate. October 15th dawned crisp and clear. I prepared in the lake house master bedroom, applying makeup with steady hands. The black cocktail dress, elegant, expensive yet unlabeled, hugged perfectly. Catering transformed the dining room into magazine perfection. Crystal, china, breathing wines. At 6:45, Sophie texted. GPS says address doesn't exist. Directions wrong. I had given only Lakeshore Drive initially. Specific address sent that morning. Follow private road. Gate code 10 to 15. Cars arrived precisely at 7. Eleanor and Thomas first in their Mercedes. Then Sophie and Richard's Range Rover. Mark in his Porsche. The rest filled out to 12 total. I watched from the window as confusion turned to awe at the house. Opening the door. Welcome, everyone. Please come in. Silence fell heavily. Sophie's mouth opened in shock at the soaring foyer. Contemporary art. Lake views. Eleanor gripped Thomas's arm. Richard managed. Grace. Whose house is this?
Mine. Closed last week.
Champagne on the terrace. They moved like dreamers through the space. James whispered calculations. I corrected lightly. 4.2 million for the property. Closer to 5 with plans. Sophie found words. Impossible. You do data entry. Live in that tiny apartment. I haven't worked in 3 years. Kept the apartment for convenience. Shall we dine? The meal unfolded in surreal quiet. Eleanor started sentences and faltered. Sophie stared at Crystal. Untouched food. Over dessert. Eleanor burst. Where did this come from? Did you remarry?
No.
Intelligent investing of my settlement plus successful ventures. I was fortunate. You let us think you struggled. Sophie's voice rose. I never said I struggled. You assumed. I sipped wine. Fascinating how treatment changed based on perceived finances. Which brings us to tonight's announcement. I stood. I've founded Fresh Starts, supporting women after divorce with financial education. Funding it with most of my estate, $8 million to begin. More later. My will reflects this. It will be my legacy. Helping women like those discarded when no longer useful. I met Sophie's eyes. You expressed concern about my future and legacy. The foundation is my family now. Eleanor protested faintly. But we're family. Family doesn't mock someone's phone. Doesn't toast with champagne unoffered. Doesn't use them as entertainment or cautionary tales. Sophie stood.
Flushed.
You planned this. Lied for years. I lived quietly. You wrote the narrative of failure. It made you feel generous inviting me. Superior by comparison. This is vindictive.
No.
This is truth and consequences. Cruel was your punchlines. This is freedom. Richard accused entrapment. Recording. I revealed knowledge of their debts publicly. Mark called it revenge. Eleanor pleaded forgiveness.
Karen.
James's wife spoke up. She's right. We did treat her as less. Jokes. Seating her aside. Introducing her as struggling. Apologies surfaced from some. Fury from others. Sophie declared it not over. I responded calmly. Financial independence means I need none of your approval or presence. Finish dessert if you wish. Then leave. The foundation launches next month. None of you are part of my future. They departed one by one. Eleanor crying softly. Mark shaking his head. Karen apologized quietly. Sophie's final threat. You'll regret this alone. I'd rather be alone with dignity than surrounded by conditional affection. The cars faded down the drive. Catering cleared discreetly. I texted Olivia. Come over. Expensive wine is open. An hour later. On the terrace overlooking moonlit water. She listened to the full account, gasping and laughing at key moments. Sophie's face when she realized. Priceless after 3 years. Any regrets? She asked. Only waiting so long to drop their validation. I documented cruelty when I could have lived freely sooner. But knowing their true selves makes this sweeter. We sat in peaceful silence. My old phone buzzed, a text from Karen, leaving James. Eyes opened. Thanks for courage. Olivia raised her glass. Your revelation is already changing lives. It was never revenge. It was revelation. Their cruelty and my truth couldn't coexist. That's on them. Next morning, sunlight danced on the lake. No more drama. No pretense. I blocked every Miller number on the old iPhone 8. Drove to buy a new phone not to prove anything, but because I wanted to. Transfer data, screenshots of slides uploaded to cloud. No longer needed. The associate offered to keep the old as backup. No, I smiled. I don't hold on to broken things anymore. Driving home along Lakeshore, I reflected on the women fresh starts would help, those reduced to cautionary tales, told they were nothing without a partner's money. They would learn what I had. The best answer to being underestimated isn't proving worth to the blind. It's building a life so rich their opinions become irrelevant. Sophie's initial mockery over my old phone had sparked this chapter. But it was never about the phone. It was about assumptions that value equals possessions, that worth depends on perception, that approval defines us. They were wrong. And now,
They knew it deeply.
what remains is the quiet power of choosing yourself when others only saw what they wanted. The lake stretched peacefully before me, a future wide open. Would you have waited 3 years for certainty, or revealed sooner? The question lingers. Haunting in its simplicity, how much of ourselves do we hide to test love that was never real?